It was late night, and our movie ended later than we had presumed, and then the only place that was open to get a bite to eat was the weird Burger King at the corner of the street across the cinema. It was very late at night, and everything was closed other than Burger King, and we were all very hungry and didn't really care about the place or how it looked. It was more about let's eat it, and less about hanging out. And we were ordering everything as we were famished, and we ordered and hurried everything and waited as our order was coming in. We weren't ready to leave just yet, so we decided to book an Uber for later, and we sat around waiting for our order while the guy at the Burger King was slowly preparing our order. It was almost closer to the midnight, and we weren't planning anything special, so we decided to just eat and leave. But our order was still on its way, and we were getting impatient, and we decided to let the guy know that we want to get in the order as fast as we could, and we told him that we are bumming a smoke outside, so call us in when the order is done. He agreed, and went on to his tasks to making the burgers and stuff. We looked at him from the outside, and he was working, but he seemed clueless, and since they looked short-staffed, I decided to go in and ask him if he needs help. My friend stopped me and told me to not be so kind. One of my friends said, "It is their job to do it, and they are getting paid to do it. Don't you worry about him. He is a big boy and he will handle himself. Just wait until he calls us in. We have paid for it, so wait and be professional." I agreed to my friend and waited, but mostly I was looking at the man inside doing his job and struggling with everything in there. So instead of not hearing my friend's advice, I went inside to ask if he needed any help. As I entered, he was startled, and I asked, "Do you need any help in the kitchen?" And he nervously said, "No thank you. You're kind, but I will manage." And he replied, "It's all messy here anyway." And I said, "I have seen worse. It is okay if you want my help. I can help you. I used to work at McDonald's before this." And he replied, "It is okay. We have a company policy anyway. Can't let you back here. Sorry." And I replied, "That's all right. I get it." And then he made the conversation. "That is why I thought I had seen you somewhere. You worked at the McDonald's at 4th. And I said, "Yes, I did work there last summer." And he replied, "Oh yeah, I know. I came there a couple of times." And we shared smiles and went back to waiting. And then I asked him, "So what did your super say about the time? It's late and you are still open." And he replied, "I'm committing like a crime here. I open late so I can make some extra bucks. I get an extra $40 to $50 per night, and in return, really hungry people get served. I guess I can trust you." And I said with a smile, "Yes, you can trust me. That's pretty cool. People get fed and you get extra money. No harm done." And our conversation was very light and friendly. And the man even got me the coffee for free and some donuts they brought in for the office party. I thanked him, and as he went back to working on our order. Then, a minute later, he said, "Your order is almost ready. Why don't you call in your friends while I pack your order?" And I went and called the guys, and one of my friends who lectured me previously said, "You won't ever listen to anyone. Your kindness will kill us one day." As we went inside, we saw that our order was all packed and ready, and we were about to leave when one of our friends couldn't wait and started eating the burger and was pissed as it spit it out and started shouting at the man, "Hey yo, this is shit. It tastes like burnt coal. Man, you cook shit. I want my money back for real, dog." And then aggressively started heading towards the guy. And as he did all of that, the other friend tasted their burgers, and they were all real bad. They were charging the man, and the man pulled out a gun and said, "Get out of the place. Get the hell out before I change my mind and shoot you all. Your friend here," he looked at me and continued, "is a good man, and the very reason I'm going to let you all go." And we just got out of that place as quickly and got away as far as we could without talking to each other. The next morning we saw in the news the same Burger King that we were in and the news headline about how a Burger King employee went on a carnage and killed the whole staff that bullied him during the job. At that time I was talking with him and having conversation. He was cold and had killed everyone. I still cannot seem to get over that chilled stone cold nerve-wracking experience I had in that Burger King. Hey guys. Thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. This incident happened to me about 3 years ago when I was 17. Back then, We used to live in an apartment which was a sort of mini city in itself. It had all the facilities we needed, including markets, shopping malls, parks, schools, and many more. My point to tell all this is to make you aware that the campus was very vast. There were 3 blocks, and all of them were away from each other. We lived in the first block. If we talk about my favorite place, so let me tell you that there was a Burger King which was in the first lane of the 4th block. When it comes to burgers, there was no one who could compare me. It was my favorite place as I used to go there daily or 3 to 4 times a week. The staff members had also been familiar to me as I was a kind of regular customer. It was a normal day, and even after having my breakfast, I was feeling kind of hungry. But wait, that craving was not for homemade food, but I wanted to eat a burger dipped in heavy cheese along with some cold drink or soft drink. Without wasting my time, I hopped out of bed and went out of the room. I searched for my mom, who was working in the kitchen, and I told her that I was going to grab a burger. My mom knew about my habit and was always scolding me to focus less on street foods, but I never listened to her. That day was no different. She kept on shouting at me to stop me from going as she was preparing lunch for us, but I ignored her and ran out. I was walking across the lanes when a friend of mine saw me and asked me to wait. I waited for him and told him my point to walk out. Luckily, he was also planning to grab something to eat, so he also came with me to Burger King. We went there and grabbed a seat. He asked me to wait and force he would give the order. I waited for him while he went to the counter and ordered 2 burgers with cold drinks and little snacks for us. After giving the order details, he returned to the seat and we started chatting about some boys stuff. We were in the middle of our chat when we heard some noises coming from the other seat right in front of us to the corner. We noticed 2 full-frown men were ganged up on a lady and teasing her. They were having some argument which was not clear to us, but it looked like the 3 of them were familiar with each other. We couldn't understand the matter, but it seemed like they were quarreling over something. We were watching them continuously when the argument between them became serious and they started pushing the lady and beating her. Within a flick of seconds, I could just figure out that the lady was screaming and 2 of them were hitting her with something. I and my friend remained there while looking at the scene. The whole scenario was too horrible and we both were terrified. Soon, they announced in a loud voice and warned all of us in the store to get out as soon as possible. I just gathered the courage of all my life and no, I didn't go and fight with the murderers. I just ran away with all my might along with my friend. I was a kid back then. I had no clue what to do. Within a minute, the whole store was covered in silence. All the customers along with the staff members ran away from there, leaving that lady with those maniacs. Even while running from there, we could hear the lady screaming in pain, but we were helpless and couldn't help her. But my friend called the cops while running and explained the situation. We reached our home and sat there in a park while thinking about the lady. We were thinking about whether she was alive or not. After a few minutes, everyone started running toward Burger King. We knew this before, so we joined them and asked one of them about the situation. He told me that a lady was killed in the Burger King and the murderers flee from there. We all went there and saw the dead body. Everyone concluded that the lady had been robbed and stabbed to death. That time, I could see her face clearly, and I came to know that the lady was no stranger, but my math tutor. The cops also came there after a few minutes and asked us about the scene. We were the prime witnesses, but we were afraid to involve ourselves in this case, so we remained silent and didn't tell them anything. Everyone there told them that they reached there when the murderers already flee. The cops investigated the store and retrieved her body with them. I returned to my home and told my mother about all the things that I experienced. I was afraid and shocked, so she asked me to go and rest for a while. I regret to this date why I didn't tell anyone about this. Very much possible that she would have been saved if I had been strong enough to fight them. The scene and her scream are still fresh in my mind. Every night, I ask God to forgive me, because somewhere, I feel I am also responsible for her death. Back when I was in college, I used to work evening shifts at an independent coffee shop that happened to be right next door to this little bagel place. I think there must have been some degree of collusion between the two owners, as the bagel place was geared to be like a health nut place, whereas all the baked goods the coffee shop produced had like diabetes-inducing levels of sugar in them. So naturally, I'd often gone to the bagel place to grab a bite to eat before clocking in for my shift. Since the sugar craft that followed, one of the cinnamon buns was about as debilitating as they come. But that's how I met Tom. Tom worked full-time at the bagel place, and he was there to take my order like 9 out of 10 times that I stopped by. It wasn't long before he knew my order off by heart. Shortly after that, we were on first-name terms, and the more familiar we got, the more little gentle flirting entered into our daily exchanges. Wasn't mad about it? He was kind of cute, and it certainly didn't sting that he started giving me discounts. After a month or so, he asked me if I have a boyfriend. I said no. So he asked me if I'd like to grab a drink or something after our shift ends. The bagel place and the coffee shop closed within a half an hour of each other. I said sure, because why not, right? But oh my god, if I'd have known that kind of guy Tom was and have just resigned myself to getting fat from the Danishes at work, a few extra pounds would be easy to shake. But a full-blown stalker, not so much. Okay, so I didn't meet Tom after work that day, as I was too busy with an upcoming deadline. However, we did arrange to meet over the weekend, so we could see if we click. It definitely wasn't the greatest state I'd ever been on. Like, I don't think whatever chemistry we had really translated into a social conversational setting. But I didn't write them off altogether, and we agreed to go out next time we were both free. It's so weird to think he actually gave me space at first, like we went 48 hours at a time without talking sometimes. It really did seem chill. But then came the day when I walked into the bagel place and the manager was working the evening shift. This is highly out of the ordinary, so I asked her if Tom was sick or something. It's then she hits me with Tom isn't employed here anymore. We decided it was best that we parted ways. I'm shocked. So while I'm waiting for my order, I text Tom to ask him what the heck happened with his parting ways business. He replies pretty quickly, telling me that the manager had caught him giving me a discount and fired him as a result. Immediately, I felt terribly guilty, and I get the idea that if I pay off the difference from what was owed, I could maybe talk her into giving him his old job back. So right when I collected my bagel, I politely offered to pay back the discount if she considered offering Thomas's job back. I kind of embellished a little, making out that I'm the one who manipulated him into doing it, and the whole time the manager has this wow expression on her face. I think I'm making a solid point. She comes back with, "Oh, is that what he told you?" According to her, Tom hadn't been fired for giving discounts. It was her own policy that employees of local businesses get money off their food. He'd been fired because she'd received a number of complaints from female customers regarding his behavior towards them. His no was the flirt a little offered discounts, then eventually asked for the number. Those who handed it over didn't have a problem. Those that refused got cussed out before he refused service altogether. She claimed she actually had security footage of him going off when a customer, and some of the language he used was absolutely abhorrent. She planned on giving him a final warning over the incident that she prefers to work with and mentor junior staff instead of just kicking them to the curb. But the one thing she can't deal with is liars. Not realizing the footage came with audio, Tom tries to lie his way out of the predicament by claiming the disagreement was because the lady had tried to give him a fake $10 bill. That's like a pathological level of dishonesty, right? They're still insisting on the lies when confronted with overwhelming evidence to the contrary. I just remember apologizing for the intrusion and thanked her for setting me straight before I headed over to work to clock in. Tom was still expecting a reply at that point, but I just had no idea what to say to him. I wasn't even sure if I was ever going to talk to him again. I mean, that could have been me getting cussed out if I had the gall to turn them down. When I finished my shift, I got my phone out of my purse and I find that I had a grand total of 12 butt notifications, all with Tom's name attached. They started off all gentle at first. Have a good shift. Text me when you finish, etc. But around 8 p.m., there was obviously a point where he learned of the interaction between me and his former manager, and he was not happy about that. Not one bit. Oh, so you're just going to believe the exploitative employer over the person she's been taking advantage of? This is exactly what's wrong with the American labor market. Even the workers are bootlickers was the general tone of his messages. I'm not even saying I entirely disagree, but the whole thing left such a bad taste in my mouth, but I wasn't interested in seeing him at all. When I got home from work, I blocked Tom's number, deleted my contact details, and figured that would be that. But oh, how wrong I was. A few days later, I'm working the evening shift, crouched down stocking the mini fridge. I finish up, close the fridge. Then when I stand and turn around, Tom stood at the register. I tried to be as warm and friendly as possible, asking how he's been and stuff. But I completely avoid the fact that we haven't spoken since his little text tirade. At first, I think I dodged a bullet, as he's perfectly civil and goes on to order a drink. But like right as I'm handing him his drink, he decides to make it super awkward. So I guess you're pretty much done with me, He didn't say it in that particularly aggressive way, but it was loud and jarring enough to attract the attention of almost everyone in the store. I feel like I'm about to cringe out of existence, but somehow I maintain my corporal form and say in as lower a voice as possible, "This isn't the time or place. Please drop it." He just smiles, nods, and starts walking away. But instead of actually walking out of the door like I thought it was going to, he just takes a seat right in the middle of the store and proceeds to just stare at the register area in between baby sips of this coffee. And that's basically how it started. Tom would show up for coffee almost every time I was working, and every time he would just sit there for like an hour, staring me down whenever I was at the register. He was never rude or awkward about it, not after the initial incident anyway. So despite the fact that my boss had assured me that any funny business would result in a lifetime ban, he was reluctant to kick him out for being a little weird, as he phrased it. That got to be a kind of running joke about it, to everyone calling him Bicky Stalker, and I have to admit that one about upselling the Portuguese custard tarts until he was too fat to chase me. That one really didn't make me smile, but boy did that stop being funny. After the first time, he followed me home. After that, things got serious. I called the cops, got some advice from their fixated persons unit, and they actually paid Tom a visit to warn him off stalking me. But apparently he was only deterred for about a week, and what followed was a painfully slow escalation of intensity that culminated in the following. And that the 24 times had followed me up till that point, Tom had either stayed on the street corner and watched me walk into my building, or stood outside the building and looked up at the windows like he was trying to work out exactly which unit I was in. But on the day in question, I was so used to him keeping his distance that I didn't even notice that he was almost right behind me by the time I got to my door. Seeing him so close actually elicit the kind of squeal from me I'm definitely not proud of. But Jesus Christ, seeing him right there just about scared the poop out of me. I absolutely bowled it inside. Never been so grateful that the lock was operated by a key fob instead of an actual key. Tom just stayed at the door, banging on it and telling me to get my butt out there, that I had to be an adult and talk to him about it. Whatever it was, since he was banging on the door and screaming in the street, I was totally freaking out. And naturally, my first move is to call the cops. But I think he was banging so hard, acting like I was the one inside because the building I live in at the time looked exactly like all the other family homes on the block. To him, I could have quite easily been the only person living there only. That wasn't quite the case. I had the top floor of the house. Well, the bottom floor was occupied entirely by this Puerto Rican guy who worked night shifts. Keep in mind that this whole thing is going on in a Saturday afternoon, smack bang in the middle of this guy's sleeping time. So while I'm praying for the cops to show up in time, an unlikely savior is about to come to my rescue. So imagine you're me. Oh, you can hear us, Biggie. If you think that you can just punk guys like me and I'll face the consequences, you're dumber than you look. Bang, bang, bang. The out of nowhere and even deeper, louder voice starts booming over the first like, "Hey, are you crazy? I'm trying to sleep here." My neighbor from downstairs. His name actually turned out to be Luis, is wearing nothing but a pair of shorts, and he's screaming in Tom's face as he backs down the steps of our building. Tom starts saying something back to him, but Luis keeps shouting over him, telling him to get lost. Get it doesn't like he's interested in backing down just yet. Then again, out of nowhere, I hear Luis say, "Oh, you're gonna tase me, bro," before the confrontation gets physical. Everyone else in the streets is fixated on the fistfight that's now going down, but all I can focus on is what Luis said, "Tase me." Tom and brought a taser, presumably to use on me. Now by that point, because the cops were getting called about the fight on top of my stalking complaint, a marked patrol car rolls onto the scene. With a by now bloody Tom trying to walk away from the scene, the cops initially go for Luis, drawing their guns and demanding a show of hands. Buddy responds with, "Hey, I'm the victim here. This guy just tried to tase me." The cops and I watch as Tom starts to walk faster away from the scene, which obviously prompts the cops to chase him down and arrest him for carrying a concealed weapon or whatever they had in mind. Finally, my stalker was in police custody, only wouldn't catch charges for the actual stalking. He ended up going to jail for the one thing cops could stick to him: the contents of his backpack. On the one day that Tom had decided to act on this little fixation and move in to take me, or whatever, he had come with a pre-prepared kidnap kit, along with a few other choice items. According to the detective I spoke to after the fact, Tom had chosen to confront me that day while carrying duct tape, a length of electrical cord, a kind of retractable baton, and a box of 100 different contraceptives. For some reason, is that last part that particularly creeped me out, not so much their inclusion, but the sheer freaking number of them. At his trial for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, Tom's attorney argued the state was trying to wrongfully prosecute a man who had been unfortunate enough to be assaulted by an unhinged parolee, whilst caring nothing more about malicious than home supplies. The persecution had a different story. Not only had they obtained CCTV image of Tom showing up at my job on a total of 31 separate occasions over the course of 2 months, but a search of his home had turned up some extremely disturbing discoveries. What Tom had in his backpack that day was just a fraction of the kidnap kit that it assembled. He in all kind of handcuffs, ankle cuffs, ring gags, and latex masks. But by far the most disturbing was the surgical tools and the Civaflorin canister face mask combo. Yeah, I had to ask what Civaflorin was too. It turns out it's similar to chloroform that knocks you out, stuff that you put on a rag. He had tons of creepy stuff on his hard drive, including guides to kidnapping, hiding, and eventually breaking his prospective victims through a combination of brainwashing and beating. He also had a bunch of foreign language comic books that seemed to focus heavily on carnal torture, I suppose you could say. The prosecution just piled on all this evidence until it was quite clear to both the judge and jury that Tom was an extremely dangerous individual. I was terrified he'd escape justice via some loophole or something. Maybe he'd have rich parents who could pay for some smart lawyer. But no. Not even his clean rap sheet saved him from getting a solid 22-year sentence for conspiracy to commit kidnapping. As you can imagine, it was quite an ordeal, and I had to make a number of court appearances to confirm that I was one of the subjects of his many fixations. It was the most stressful experience of my life without a shadow of a doubt, and a part of me wonders just how many of those 22 years he'll really end up doing. And when he does get out, will he really have changed? Or am I going to be walking on my driveway one day when I feel a hand on my shoulder? My goodness, turn around and see the face of a man who wants to finish what he started.